welcome to the class. In this class, let us discuss about the difference between limited liability partnership companies and private limited companies. The comparison highlights the main distinctions, benefits, and drawbacks between limited liability partnership and private limited companies. The goal is to assist entrepreneurs and business owners in making well informed decisions about the type of organization to form for their particular needs and circumstances. Citing pertinent legal rules, the table outlines the benefits and drawbacks of an Indian private limited companies and LLPs, that is limited liability partnerships. So let's know about the difference between these two. Firstly, on the basis of governing law, the LLPs means Limited Liability Partnerships has their Act, Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008. When coming to private limited companies, it is governed by under Companies Act 2013. And on the basis of legal status, it has a separate legal entity. LLP has separate legal entity, whereas private limited companies also have their separate legal entity. Then the number of partners or shareholders in the companies. LLPs number of partners or shareholders are limited to extent of capital contribution. How much capital they have contributed, on the basis of that capital contribution, the number of partners or shareholders are decided. It is under the section 27 LLP Act 2008. When coming to private limited company, minimum 2 and maximum 200 shareholders can be the members or stakeholders of the private limited companies. That is, we can get under section 2 subsection 68 subsection 2nd Companies Act 2013. Then coming to formation and registration, the LLPs formation and registration is easier and less expensive. Requires incorporation document and LLP agreement. Only these two documents are required. That is given under section 11 and 23 LLP Act 2008. When coming to private limited companies, its formation and registration is more complex and very expensive. Requires MOA means Memorandum of Association and Article of Association and various other documents to be added for the registration and its formation. It is the under section 7 Companies Act 2013. Then compliance requirements. LLPs needs lower compliance requirement, need to file LLP Form 8 Statement of Account and Solvency and LLP Form 11 Annual Return, whereas private limited companies compliance requirement is higher, need to file financial statements, annual return, board meetings, etc. That can be get under section 92 and 132 of the Companies Act 2013. Then coming to audit requirements, LLPs auditing is mandatory only if turnover exceeds 40 lakh or capital contribution exceeds 25 lakh. So when the company's turnover exceeds 40 lakh or capital contribution exceeds 25 lakh, it is mandatory for the audit. Then coming to private limited companies, mandatory irrespective of turnover or capital. Whatever be the turnover or whatever be the capital contribution, they must be audit their accounts, and it is given under section 139 Companies Act 2013. Then about taxation, taxed as a partnership firm, no dividend distribution tax, that is Finance Act 2009. And private companies taxed as a company subject to dividend distribution tax, that is under section 115O Income Tax Act 1961. The LLP is taxed as a partnership firm, whereas private limited companies are taxed as a company subject to their dividend distribution. Then coming to foreign investments, FDI. LLPs are allowed under automatic route. That is, press note number 12 discusses about the companies foreign investment that is allowed under automatic route. Then about private limited companies, they are allowed under automatic route subject to sectoral caps and also and conditions, that is consolidated FDI policy DIPP. Then coming to transfer of ownership. In limited liability partnership, more restrictive requires consents of all the partners. Any transfer of the ownership requires the consent of all the partners. That is given under the section 42 LLP Act 2008. Whereas private limited companies transfer of ownership is more flexible. Shares can be transferred subject to restrictions in article of association, and the ownership can be transferred on the basis of the shares. Then that is given under section 56 Companies Act 2013. Then coming to the management structure, the limited liability partnership company's management structure is designated partners, that is managed by designated partners, flexibility in management structure. Then about private limited companies management, that is managed by board of directors, more structured and it is very regulated. That is given under section 149 and 173 Companies Act 2013. The management of limited liability partnership is that is designated the partners. Partners manage the whole overall company. Where coming to the private limited companies, it has board of directors and more structured members and is regulated by number of managers. Then coming to statutory meeting and records, LLPs, it is no mandatory requirement for statutory meeting. There is no compulsory requirement of statutory meetings for limited liability partnership companies, whereas private limited companies statutory meeting and records are mandatory requirement for board meetings, annual general meeting, that is given under section 173 and 96 Companies Act 2013. Then conversion. About the conversion, more restrictive requires consent of all the partners. Any conversion to be taken place in the LLPs, it should be under the consent of all the partners, that is given under section 42 LLP Act 2008. Whereas private limited company conversion to LLP is possible but involves more complex procedures. It has much more complex procedures to be fulfilled, then it can be converted to LLP, that is given under section 336 Companies Act 2013. So it is the major difference between the limited liability partnership and private limited companies. So it is very good to understand the difference between these two companies. Let we able to know how the companies are differentiated, and then please subscribe the channel for more videos. Then thank you all for watching the complete video, and subscribe the channel for more informative videos, and also tap on bell icon for more notifications and to be up to date for all the informative videos. Thank you all.